All right, were there any other comments anyone wanted to raise at the workshop tonight on any other issues to do with wellbeing?
Just a quick one on the air conditioning equipment, that after a year or 2 years it might start deteriorating. We had this discussion with Councillor Astaire. The thought was there should be self-certification, so if that was done every January, if it was found subsequently was faulty, then the owner would be at fault and would possibly face a penalty. So rather than having a new department in Westminster City Council for going around checking thousands and thousands of air conditioning equipment, it just to be a legislation saying that thou shalt on the 1st of January do self-certification of your air conditioning equipment.
Thank you.
Simon Burkett, Knightsbridge Association. A few general points which don't seem to have been covered. Step-free access to tube stations and things. I had thought at one stage, this may or may not be right, so it's not an assertion, it's more a question, but I actually thought that under EU law there was a requirement from even next year or fairly imminently to have step-free access or shut things down. But I don't know whether there is such a thing, and if so, whether it's being complied with. But I thought there were some quite stringent rules coming in to provide it. So perhaps, I don't know if anyone could comment on that, whether that's the case or...
No, I think our transport officers would be more likely to comment on that. But certainly we can get back to you as part of this process.
That's one thing. Second thing is flooding. Something that with our old Victorian drains, something which is often forgotten is these bigger increasing intensity of buildings get put in and the drains just can't support it, and I'm sure that contributes to some of the flooding problems that we've had, so please take that seriously. The inequalities, we haven't really talked about that tonight much, but it's obviously very much in your briefing note. And at a micro level, a lot of the people who actually suffer most are those who live, say, for example, directly along busy roads and so on, but not just there. And two final points. First is really to encourage the council in its ambition to get back to being an exemplar green authority. I think that would be a tremendous achievement, and please all encouragement to do so. And finally, I'd just like to sort of add my weight to some of the points that have been made by Amenity Society people tonight. If there was one big strategic thing which I think the council has not got right, it's the balance between the needs of residents and the needs of those who work and visit the borough. I think there needs to be a recognition that in a number of areas, but most particularly well-being, noise or air quality, those of us who live here 24 hours a day have very high total exposure levels, whether it's noise or poor air quality. And to give an equal weighting to somebody who has got a 24-hour exposure and somebody who really is only going to be penalised by an extra 2 minutes on their car journey because they're carried down a different arterial route or something, is, I think, ridiculous. Somebody's inconvenience for 2 minutes versus substantial health effects created over a 24-hour period. And I think there needs to be a much greater emphasis, I think, in council policies. This is speaking with my Knightsbridge Association hat on, much greater emphasis on the needs of residents proportionally to the time that they are affected by these problems.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well said. Absolutely well said. One last random point from me, because it hasn't come up. Mm-hmm. It is in your research on dust and noise that people are very bothered by construction noise and dust that goes with that. One of the things that amazes me is how many relatively new buildings get pulled down in favour of yet another. Now that's got something to do with the way developers are financing themselves these days and the churn that they've got themselves into of buildings. And I know it's very difficult as a planning authority to do anything about that. But I think heavier messages about you are not in sympathy with pulling down a building that's actually only 30 years old to replace it with something that's only going to have the life of 60 years. Or losing Victorian stock, which has stood up for 100 and odd years and clearly is capable. So under the green agenda, again, I think you should be giving some thought to how you can stop the churn or at least slow it down. Because even in Victoria, we've lost relatively new buildings. And we're going through the pain again. For what? More shopping. Eek.
Okay.
And thank you very much for these workshops. I mean, they are very useful. I've said that before, Lisa, and
Brilliant.
we've had a lot of very good feedback from residents. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.